Hi, my name is Mary McCollum, and this is my behavior change project. The subject of my behavior change project was David. David is an adult male with mild mental retardation. This diagnosis was verified when David was 18 and first entered into the program. The setting for the project is the Adult Day Center. The main focus of this project was to help David improve his hygiene skills. David is able to engage in hygiene skills such as bathing and grooming and brushing his teeth, but he doesn't do so without a lot of prompting. So the skills chosen for this project are toothbrushing and applying deodorant. And toothbrushing was defined as brushing one's teeth with a toothbrush and toothpaste using a circular motion for no less than 1 minute. And applying deodorant is defined as applying deodorant to the skin of both underarms using a back and forth motion of no less than 2 swipes. These were chosen for David because, like we said, he does not engage in hygiene skills on a daily basis. And this has caused him to become bullied by some of the other adults in the program. The measurement tool that I chose to use for these behaviors was event recording because I was only interested in whether or not the behaviors occurred. The design that I chose was AB design. I chose this because it allows for the replication of the effects of the intervention, and it also allows for a functional relationship to be shown between the control and the intervention. During the baseline phase, everything was normal in David's classroom. He would enter the classroom each day, and at some point during the first 30 minutes of class, his teacher would give him a verbal prompt to engage in these behaviors, and the teacher would simply record whether or not he engaged in toothbrushing or putting his deodorant on. During the treatment phase of the intervention, David and the teacher signed a contract on the first day of the week, which is Monday, and that contract stated that if David engaged in the behaviors of brushing his teeth and putting on deodorant, that he would receive 15 minutes of time to engage in a fantasy sports league for each of the behaviors that he engaged in during the day. So during that time, David would enter the classroom, and sometime during the first 30 minutes, it was recorded whether or not he engaged in those behaviors. If David had not engaged in the behaviors about 5 minutes before the 30-minute time period was up, his teacher was to give him a verbal prompt to engage in those behaviors. The IOA data for these behaviors was taken 1 day a week, and what happened during that time period was that 2 independent observers would come into the classroom and sit down in the back of the classroom and just simply watch and wait while David came in to see if he engaged in those behaviors or not. The IOA data recorded for those was 100% in agreement. The results of this project were shown in this graph. This graph shows both intervention phases and both baseline phases. During the first baseline phase, we can see that David did not engage in the behaviors at any time during that phase. During the intervention phase, we can see that David engaged in the behaviors every day. Then we come to the next baseline phase, we can see that David engaged in the behaviors the first 2 days, and then that behavior dropped off dramatically when he realized that he was no longer going to receive the reinforcement for the behaviors. And then the final intervention phase shows that David engaged in these behaviors every day. No generalization data was taken because of the short time period that this project covered. I did discuss with his teacher, however, that since the behavior change and the the behavior contract was successful in helping him change those behaviors, that we should continue to use the behavior contract to help him continue to engage in these behaviors, and also to add in other behaviors to that, such as washing his face and trimming his nails and things of that nature, until we develop a whole hygiene routine for him. Now, also discussed as far as generalization is developing more of a relationship with his family in the home environment to help him eventually be able to successfully complete these behaviors in the home environment rather than in the day program. I believe that this intervention was successful. I believe that the data that shows during each intervention phase shows that he engaged in the behaviors when he had access to the reinforcers, but during the baseline phases, it shows that he did not engage in the behaviors when he did not have access to the reinforcers. During the first line, during the second baseline phase, we can see that he did engage in the behaviors the first 2 days, but I believe that he was still convinced that he was going to receive those reinforcers. And as soon as he realized that he didn't receive the reinforcers for doing those behaviors, it dropped off dramatically. And I believe the main thing that made this intervention successful was that the reinforcer was powerful enough for David. He really enjoyed being able to engage in the fantasy sports league, and he was really excited about it. And he was definitely not happy during the second baseline phase when he was not receiving that reinforcement. So like I said, I recommended that this intervention be continued for David, and I hope that this behavior contract intervention helps him to continue to build those hygiene skills, and which will help him socially and to get along with his peers and having more friends at the day program. Well, thank you for listening to my behavior project, and I hope that you were successful as well.